What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Team Chat Podcast, a video game show where we talk about, well, video games, the ones we love, the ones we hate, and everything in between. I am one of your hosts, Jarrett Wilson, joined by Rachel Mogan.
Buongiorno.
Buongiorno to you as well. How are you this fine day?
I am doing just fine. If anybody starts to see me slowly sink into darkness, it's because I'm a big fan of natural light, but it is evening, so if I suddenly become like a dark, spooky shadow, don't be surprised.
Well, I mean, the natural light works great.
See, doesn't it look so much better?
I know. Like, I've got these fake artificial bullshit up in my house. I just, it's all over the place. But
you own too many lights. You and your job.
I do. I own way too many lights.
Too much lighting.
I have the normal lights that we have to light the studio setup that you can see right over here. Then I've got these two lights now that are behind my computer for when we do stuff like this. I got a lamp for when I want to work in darkness with just a little teeny tiny bit of light. And then I have some other camera mounted lights as well. It's fine. It's I have a problem, but I can stop it anytime I want. But anyway, so Team Chat Podcast. Yeah, we talk about video games, the ones we love, the ones we hate, and everything in between. New episodes come out on Tuesday mornings, and you can listen to those on podcast services around the World Wide Web, such as Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and others. We have a complete list of all the places the show is available. To our knowledge, we keep randomly getting added to other podcasts directories and everything like that. So as we find new places, we keep an updated list on our website. So you can head over to teamchatpodcast.com/where to listen for a complete list. You can also watch each episode on YouTube as well if you'd prefer to watch us talk about games rather than just listen. You can find us on social media such as Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Join our Discord server. Links for all that are in the description below. And finally, if you're wanting to help make the show bigger and better, you can head over to patreon.com/teamchatpodcast, where for as little as $1 a month, you can support the show. And in return, we'll give you our love and gratitude and cool perks like getting access to the episodes early before their general Tuesday release, a private server on our Discord, private channel on our Discord server, the Rogues Gallery, and a lot of other tidbits and fun goodies as we release them. So check that out over on patreon.com. I did want to make a note, though, real quick before we got started. I know I mentioned a couple of weeks ago, too, but we're going to delay episodes of Team Chit Chat, which was one of the rewards for our $5 tier, just for a little while, maybe until all this craziness is over and we can be in the same place, because a lot of that a lot of that show was talking about things that we liked outside of gaming, and it just had a nice feel for being something together that we could do in the same space, especially if we did card games and stuff like that.
Yeah,
exactly.
And it's not quite the same.
It's not quite the same. So until we kind of get back into our normal groove of everything, we're going to put that on hold. So we do have one episode in the can that I still need to get out, and we'll do that one. After that, though, we are going to have a little bit of delay, but we'll bring it back as soon as we can, or if we figure out some other way to kind of work around it to make it still work for what we want it to do. But it's going to come back, so don't worry. You'll get that fun little extra content later on down the road. But before we get in, but also, if you can't support us over on Patreon, that's no big deal at all. You can still help us make the show bigger and better by continuing to listen, subscribe on podcast services, subscribe over on YouTube, follow us on all those social media channels, let your friends know about us, and share us there, and write us reviews, rate us on iTunes. All these things help it make the show bigger and better because it helps us get the word out there to the masses. We love you all. Look at these hearts, exploding hearts that we've just done, because we're bursting with love and appreciation. Thank you all.
Our hearts also break every time you don't smash that like and subscribe button.
Absolutely. A little piece of us dies.
They just shatter.
But before we get into the main topic of the day, let's get a little bit of news in our moment with Mogan, what's coming out soon, and other goodness.
Okay, so we skipped it last week because last week's episode was extra large. So we're backtracking real quick just to some stuff that came out last week. So the Final Fantasy VII Remake is now out for PlayStation 4 exclusively. Also coming out last week was Someday You'll Return for PC. That launched on April 14th. Dead by Daylight, a game I have heard many things about, has just come out for iOS and Android on April 16th. And then yeah, I know, right?
I didn't think it was that kind of game, but okay.
Me neither. And then neither is Fortnite, but I think you can technically play that on mobile too.
It's a terrible experience, but
it's terrible. So then, as of this episode's air date on April 21st, we have Gato Roboto for the Xbox One. We also have coming soon on April 24th, Deliver Us the Moon for PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Also on the 24th, we have Predator Hunting Grounds for PlayStation 4. Trials of Mana, a game I've heard quite a lot about, for PlayStation 4, Switch, and PC. Again, that's also on the 24th. And XCOM Chimera Squad for PC, April 24.
Very nice. Very nice. So one other news story, or a couple other news stories actually that we had. Do you want to do yours first?
Yeah, let me start with this one because I just think it's so hilarious for a couple of reasons. So Sony, I think last week by now, cool. Sony last week announced that they are going to have 2 completely free games for just everybody. So anybody that has a PlayStation 4, maybe PlayStation 3 question mark, unsure of that. It's probably only PS4. They announced that they are giving away totally free copies of the Uncharted, the Nathan Drake collection. Boo. And Journey, an actually good game that you should play. So I just thought that this was hysterical when I saw the 2 games that they had picked, because Journey is an amazing piece of art, and the Uncharted games are literal garbage fires that I hate to the bottom of my soul. So I was just laughing that it was these 2.
Yeah, it is kind of an odd pairing, I'd say, of games, but still, it is funny that they always just tout it as you're getting these 2 free games. But I mean, honestly, though, you're getting 4 because there are 3 games included in the Nathan Drake collection. So still, to give 4 games free like this for helping everyone it's part of their play at home initiative, right? Is what it's called.
So this is part of their play at home initiative, which is again just more incentive to stay at home and not go out to stop the spread of coronavirus. These games are available from April 15th through May 5th. So you can still get them for free right now, but that ends as of May 5. So in addition to these 2 free games being part of this stay at home initiative, in that same blog post where Sony announced this, they did also announced, and I just kind of wanted to give a shout out to this because I think it's such a good idea for the industry, that they're setting aside a creative fund, and they've earmarked more than $10 million to support independent development partners, because of course the larger game studios are likely not being hit nearly as hard. Maybe they're even doing better than ever, whereas independent studios who rely on frequently things like E3 to get the word out about their games, they're probably taking a bit of a hit just because they're not able to get the word out on the same scale about their games. So they also Sony did this little creative fund, and I just think that's a great idea.
Yep, it's awesome, and it's really great to see that like video game companies or like Sony is stepping up and like giving these ways, encouraging a really good encouragement to stay home, and to be able.
Needed more encouragement.
You're gonna have tons of hours. I know, right? Like if the threat of getting sick isn't enough, but still, super cool. Super fun to see. Another thing that I did, this actually just came out too. I don't know if we talked about it on the show, but I know I posted about it in our Discord, that the N64 game Star Wars Episode 1 Racer, that's where it's pod racing game, is coming to the Switch. Now, when this first broke a couple weeks ago, they just said it's coming soon. Stay tuned. We'll let you know. Well, today they did finally release a release date. It will be coming to the Switch on May 12th. So not too much longer to wait at all for that. I'll be playing the hell out of that game because I'm super, it's an awesome racer game, and it'll be great to revisit that, especially on the Switch. That'll be perfect. I can just play it anywhere. It's great. But the last news story that we wanted to touch on today also broke in the last week. Yesterday, actually, what is today? I have no idea of what day or time it is. It's the 16th, so the 15th. Yes. So on the 15th, Jason Schreier over at Kotaku, who also, spoiler of a news story, he just posted that he's actually leaving Kotaku. So that's interesting to see.
That's shocking. Wasn't he the one that did that huge Anthem expose about why Anthem's development was so cray-cray?
Yeah. Jason Schreier, he's broken a lot of the big stories over at Kotaku. So it is a big deal that he's leaving. But that's a story for another time.
I hadn't heard that yet.
It literally, as we were setting up to record, is when I saw that he had posted the article where he was talking about it. But anyway, so he posted an article yesterday that was 18 months after Red Dead Redemption 2, Rockstar has made big cultural changes. And so I just want to talk about this because we did talk about Rockstar around the release of Red Dead Redemption 2, talking about how it came out that, yes, they were crunching. They were really, putting in insane hours to try to get this game out the door. It's been a long,
unhealthy hours.
Unhealthy hours, yes.
Unhealthy hours.
And so, oftentimes these crunch conversations come up, and they're always just, it sucks, but what can you do? Well, it looks like Rockstar's actually taking steps to make it better. And not just about crunch, but their overall culture of the company. A top Rockstar executive this is from the article, top Rockstar executive Jennifer Colby sent out an email to staff with a list of bullet-pointed initiatives to improve Rockstar's culture. And so from this email, it says, quote, in these last several months, we have undertaken a lot of work across every area of the company, looking at our processes to determine what works and what doesn't. What we are great at and what we could improve. We hope that the majority of you have felt some of these positive changes already, and those that haven't soon will. So some of their upcoming plans, it says in this article for 2020, are flexible schedules for developers at Rockstar Studios all over the world, which is really cool. Management and leadership training, anonymous surveys to collect feedback from employees, regular updates on the company's future in games and updates, and better communication all around. So there, later on, it says in the email, quote again, we have taken conscious steps to improve our approach to developing games in order to reduce the need for overtime. We realize we still have plenty to do in this area and will continue to take steps so we can more accurately predict and schedule games and DLC in a way that is more sustainable, but still allows us the creative flexibility to iterate on the incredibly ambitious and complex games we make. So that, is kind of addressing overall, but there have also been some of the cultural things that were impacting Rockstar where, so outside of that, there was kind of a frat house mentality among some of the leadership. There have just been bad apples or, bad cases of leaders and management and all this stuff. Some poor treatment, like in the article, it describes game testers in one of their UK studios, couldn't have their phones when they were doing their QA. Blinds of the building had to be shut so that people couldn't look in and try to get a glance and all that stuff. And they were only contract. Well, now some of the QA testers are now full-time employees. They can use their phones now. It's different things like that. People in management positions who haven't had a stellar track record at Rockstar have been let go, including even I don't know if he was necessarily let go or if it was his own choice to leave, but one of the founders, Dan Houser, has exited from Rockstar. So it's a very cool thing to see, and hopefully other studios follow suit. But then not only that, right now, they're kind of in the lull, or not lull necessarily, but Red Dead 2 has been out for over a year, and then they're on development of their next games, but they're not in the crunch stage yet. So it'll be interesting to see if some of these changes still hold true when it actually gets to when the normal crunch period would begin. So hopefully this plan that they've put out and put in place will be able to have enough time to become deeply seated in the company, and that stuff won't happen later on down the road. And hopefully other studios, like I said, will follow suit. So it's good stuff.
I mean, as always, it remains to be seen whether or not these changes have an effect, but it's good to see them doing anything to try and tackle both, bad in-company culture and the culture of crunch and overworking conditions.
Right. And there are some quotes from employees in Jason Schreier's article where they say, yeah, we've noticed changes and it does seem better. So hopefully it stays on the improvement. So that brings us to our main topic now, which is one that I'm surprisingly excited to talk about, I gotta say.
Yeah, see, I'm sure that you know what I'm probably going to say.
Oh, yeah.
I have no idea what you're. So I feel like your perspective is going to be the one that I at least am really interested to hear about, because we're talking about not the full game.
No.
We haven't been able to get our hands on it yet because we're both broke and playing many other games. But we both played, and we're going to be talking about the Final Fantasy VII Remake demo that was available and is still available for the PS4.
Yes. So I will say, this is the first. And it's funny that it's only a demo, but this is the first Final Fantasy anything I have played. I missed out on all the originals, like the older games and everything. My buddy Michael actually let me borrow Final Fantasy 15. I just haven't had a chance to start it yet. So I I haven't touched the original Final Fantasy VII, nothing like that. So it was exciting, I gotta say, though, to jump into one for the first time. And when I was playing through the demo, I kind of had that whole thing. It was like, okay, I'm experiencing now what everybody else. Granted, it's a different lens now that we're seeing it through.
You're actually getting a very different experience from everybody else.
Well, yeah. I mean, at this point in my life, I'm not going to go back and try to replay 7 because it doesn't hold that nostalgic factor for me. So I'll just go forward with what I have. But still, for never having played one before, and honestly never really had a desire to play a Final Fantasy game before, I really enjoyed it. I thought it was a super fun time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So just to kind of give some people some background on what the demo entails, we're going to be talking about it in full because it's a demo. We're not considering any of this to be spoilers. And also it's a really old game, and you probably know what already happens. And even if you don't, this is early game stuff. It's not anything that's going to impact the story on a large scale, so don't worry about that. So the scene basically starts much as the original game did, kind of right in the Disc 1, where you are Cloud Strife, and you are a mercenary, sword for hire, with a group of, I guess you would call them like environmental terrorists, Avalanche, led, kind of, because they're fighting for like the planet. They're environmental terrorists, baby. Yeah. So they're headed up by Barrett, who is he's kind of like the Mega Man of Final Fantasy, or the same as Aaron, because he's got a gun arm. The coolest accessory anyone can have.
Can't even take his hand out of it. It's just he's just got a gun on his arm.
No, that is his hand. Like, it's not optional.
I know. That's I mean, he can't pop it off later. He's just always stuck with a machine gun arm.
And so they are infiltrating a place called Shinra Corporation. So Shinra Corporation is the big, bad industrial behemoth of the world that they live in. And basically, Shinra is sucking all of the Mako, the life energy, out of the planet for energy generation. A lot like oil, am I right?
I mean, you'd think that somebody along the way would have been like, now you do realize this is going to run out. But no, people don't realize that.
Oh, no, I think they do. They just don't care.
Exactly.
Much like our literal current life.
I know.
The parallels are quite depressing. But the point is they're infiltrating Shinra Corporation to be able to blow up one of the reactors. So that's their entire purpose. It's Cloud, Barrett, Jesse, 2 other guys whose names I can't remember.
Wedge.
Yes, Wedge and
Briggs.
Yes. Look at you with the names. I don't remember. I don't remember the little people. They're also not playable characters. Jesse, Briggs, and Wedge aren't currently. So they're infiltrating Shinra Corporation, and you're just doing their first mission of setting the bomb on the reactor, and that's the entire demo. So why don't you?
And we liked it, everybody. So go play it.
And
we'll see you next time.
Yeah. So what was your perspective on kind of everything, like both the characters, the story, how you think the voice acting was, and of course, probably what I think you'll have the most commentary on, the combat, because it's very different from Final Fantasy games of yore.
Well, and that's the kind of the thing too. I was surprised. I was actually reading. I talked with Kyle, actually, who came on about our Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order episode. I was talking to him about this because he was going to jump into it this weekend, I think. And I said, hey, I actually played it and it was really fun. And I thought at first, I will say, like, I thought the combat at times, I will say, especially once you got to start playing with Barrett, that it switching through the menus and everything felt a little clunky. But also I was like, oh, but I've never played a Final Fantasy game. That's probably just due to my own ignorance. But then on Square Enix's website, they say it's a completely new system, which I didn't realize.
Yeah, it's totally new.
It just looked kind of similar to when I saw Michael playing Final Fantasy 15. Again, I really have no knowledge of this series at all. But still, other than that, I thought the combat was great. I'll talk about that more because there is more of that, really. So I'll jump back to that later. But as far as like the characters, like I didn't know Cloud was a mercenary. I thought or like an ex-soldier. I thought Cloud was just like the hero character that was like, young child, parents murdered by this evil corporation kind of thing, rises up to take revenge into his own hands. But no, he's as he says multiple times during the demo, he's just there for the paycheck. So that was cool to see.
Yeah, he is primarily an ex-soldier, so he's not necessarily just a mercenary. It's really just that he's no longer a soldier, is his current job, more or
Right.
less.
But I thought voice acting was really well done. It sounded great. Again, I don't have anything to compare it to as opposed to what the original game was. Was there even voice acting in Final Fantasy VII?
So no, I mean, unless I'm forgetting something, and I don't think so, I don't remember there being any voice. It has been many, many years since I played the original, but I don't think so. I'm not even sure that there was any voice acting in the cutscenes. I don't think that that was part of the game. I love the voice actor that they got for Cloud. I think that he fits the character really well.
Yes.
And overall, because, with the old games, they didn't really have voices, and Cloud's lines were pretty limited in the first place. He wasn't a silent protagonist, he just didn't talk much. So I like that they've given him what feels like a more fleshed out personality that paints him less as, a cold mercenary and also less as a valiant hero and more as just like kind of a normal dude that's like, yo, let's all just try to live our lives. They really got a good match for him.
Well, and I think too, again, I feel like from what I know of the two and what I've seen, I buy Cloud as this ex-soldier mercenary for hire way more in this than I would have in 7. Just because 7, and it's probably a technological hindrance of what they could do at the time with graphics and everything like that. But looking at how Final Fantasy VII, the original, the art style of it and everything, I would never have gotten like this gritty feel from it, I don't think. Or at least from Cloud, I would say, from the character of Cloud himself. But in this one, I was like, oh yeah, you can tell he's got some secrets. He's mysterious. He's got this past that haunts him, especially when he would have those like what seemed like they were going to be flashback moments.
Yeah, like he would seem to get headaches and something would bother him, and
right.
then he'd kind of like maybe even see visions at one point.
At the very end, he does.
Yeah, at the very end. So it's like, what's going on with him?
Exactly. So that raises questions to me. So I really liked that. Let's see. Barrett was really cool. I did like how he was absolutely no nonsense.
Is awesome.
Yeah.
I love Barrett. I always loved Barrett. I think that they have done him so well in this new game. So I adore Barrett. And although Jessie was a little bit too like Tracer style peppy to me, I was like, okay, let's all tone it down. I do think she's really cute and I like her a lot. I love her outfit. Her outfit is awesome. Everybody's
really cool.
Outfits are so cool.
I know.
They all look
I love
amazing,
Cloud's baggy pants, but I'm like, yeah, I would wear a pair of those combat boots. You know what I'm saying?
Well, he did have those in the old game too. It's just
I know,
that because of the hindrances of the art style, you just couldn't tell.
Yeah. But so I really liked all that. Let's see, what else? Just the introduction, like the introduction to Cloud in the demo was so cool, because who is it who at the very beginning, like you see her, she's carrying the flowers. Is that Aerith?
That's Aerith.
Aerith.
So
okay.
Yeah, that is correct. So back in my day, and maybe I'm wrong, but I could swear that in the original Final Fantasy VII for PlayStation 1, that they localized her name to Eris with an S at the end instead of a TH.
Okay.
I'm not sure if that's true. Maybe I imagined it wrong, but I could swear it was Eris. But of course, it's been Aerith since, time immemorial, once they fixed it, because that's what it was in the Japanese. But in my heart, she's Eris. In everybody else's heart, she's Aerith. The point is, she looks phenomenal. They did her so beautifully. She looks kind of similar to actually how she was in the Kingdom Hearts games when they had the Final Fantasy characters in there. So she looks fantastic. I love the effects that they've done for the environment. The graphics, I really can't state enough. You're comparing it to an ancient game at this point, so it's gonna look wild no matter what. But even that being said, there are other modern games that look much worse. This game looks beautiful. The particle effects on the Mako, it's just chef's kiss choice.
Well, and that's what I mean. Like even in the opening when you get the introduction to Cloud, so Aerith, He drops her flowers, they get stepped on, and then it zooms out to reveal the city is Midgard, correct?
Midgard, yes.
Which was a super impressive scene. Like you get this like small pocket, and you're like, oh, this place isn't big, and then just keeps pulling back and back and back, and you're like, this place is massive. And then I just love how it.
Sorry, it's Midgar. There's no D on the end.
So, Midgard is Norse. I think that's something with like Thor. Okay, Midgar. Sorry, but so,
I got it wrong too.
It's But so then, it zooms back in on the city and Cloud's on the back of the train and just how it like comes up behind him and everything. And he just kind of like looks up with his Buster sword on his back and everything, which can we talk the Buster sword, right?
I know it's new to you. Everybody else is just like, yeah, it's old news.
I know. I mean, I've seen it before. I knew it existed, but this is the first time I ever got to wield it.
Play with it, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So it was, I love that. So I'm all about that Buster sword, but still especially the train pulls into the station and he jumps off the back and just everything about Cloud just screams like, I don't have to prove anything to anybody. I know that I can handle my shit and I'm going to take care of anything that gets in my way. And how about you, even though you're a friend of mine, not get in my way, and that'll just make it easier for the both of us. So it's great.
It's funny because one of the reasons I've always liked Cloud is he's not like huge. He's not a giant, massive hero type that you might see in all of these other games. He's kind of small. Mm-hmm. Like he kind of has a slender frame. He's clearly got lean muscle, but he's not bulky. He's kind of like a slender dude with a huge sword virtually the size of him. And it's just like, yeah, Cloud, you wear those tank tops and your weird one shoulder armor. You do whatever you want, buddy. You look great.
Yeah, I mean, there's no logical way he should be able to even use the Buster sword, but he does with great efficiency. Let's see. So do you want to kind of just talk about the combat stuff now, I think?
Yeah, so that kind of brings us to the combat, which for people that have played the original Final Fantasy, and really most JRPGs, this is where you're going to see a huge departure from what was the norm. With more recent Final Fantasy games, they've switched to more of the real-time battle systems. But
15 does that, right?
15 does that. I think 12. I think Final Fantasy 12 does that. A number of them do. It's much more common now. But even as of Final Fantasy X and X-2, those were all the the turn-based combat style of JRPGs of yore, where you would have each character gets their own turn, you have your menu of actions that you get to choose from, your characters go, and then the enemy goes, and it's all dependent on what your speed stat is, etc. So that's what I have been used to, and it's really interesting to see how they kind of melded that into a real-time combat system.
Yeah.
Because, and this is kind of what you were talking about earlier, that I think is maybe where you and me, for sure to a certain extent, are getting a little bit hung up, because it is, I think, going to be a learning curve, but I can definitely understand how it feels clunky at first. I struggled with it for sure, because basically what happens is when you're just Cloud, when you're first starting out and you haven't acquired any new party members yet, it's really easy to go into combat because you have an auto lock system for enemies that you're near to. You can switch back and forth between the auto lock for different enemies very easily, and essentially you just hit square for Cloud to use his Buster Sword. So you just kind of hack and slash your way through.
I actually kind of had a little bit of difficulty with the auto lock, like especially when when it was just the soldiers and then they would have like their guard dog. That was fine, but when it started adding in more flying opponents, which I know at those points too, you kind of had Barret, but what were like the little? They weren't the sentries that were normally higher up. They were like the little floating, almost insect. They were like monodrones. Monodrones. I think that that's might be right. Those were a little bit harder to keep track of, and I could never. Yeah. I mean, not never. I beat the demo, so obviously I got a handle of it. But it just that part kind of a little bit. I was like, I can't get it to quite lock on to the right person, which I did appreciate, though, that in the abilities and items and stuff like that, when you're choosing what you can use next outside of the normal attack, I do like that, especially for like Cloud's fire magic ability, it gives you the choice if there are multiple enemies, which one you wanted to direct it to, other than just relying on the lock-on combat mode.
Yes,
because I feel like if that wasn't there, that would have been super frustrating. You would have been just
Also,
throwing fire all over the place.
if you had to aim the magic, I would be out. I would be like, this is too much. But luckily, you don't have to aim it because basically what happens is your standard attack of just hack and slash charges up a meter. I think they call it like the ATB meter or something. It's some acronym that I totally ignored.
Yeah,
it's
I was
just
looking up to try to see. I was looking in this article on Square Enix things talking about it, and I was just like, what is ATB? But,
it could be anything. Who knows? I don't know what it stands for, and I also don't care. All you need to know is that hitting square charges meter, because basically when you successfully attack anything, when you successfully guard, or when you successfully dodge something, it slowly but surely fills up your meter. And once your meter gets to a certain point, you're able to then hit X, which kind of freezes everything and brings up your command list.
Right.
And this is where kind of the more traditional JRPG style comes in, because by pulling up your command list, you get access to special abilities like limit break and things like that people are familiar with from the older games. So you've got your limit break, you've got your items, you've got magic, of course, you can select from your magic abilities, and who knows what else further down the line. So that's what you can do when you pull up the menu. Now, once you gain more party members, the menu becomes a little bit more important because you're only really controlling one character at a time. And when you're controlling Cloud, Barrett kind of does his own thing on auto. So they're always moving, even when you're not controlling them. But you have to make sure that you're keeping an eye on everyone's health. And when they're on auto, the other party members that you're not controlling at the time, they won't do any of their special moves. So if Barrett's on auto, he's going to rely primarily on his main fire. He's not going to do any of his charged moves. He's not going to do his abilities. He's not going to use magic. So when you pull up the menu, you can use R2 and L2 to switch between your party members just on the menu. Not who you're controlling at the time, but on the menu. And I found that
I think I missed that.
Oh, because were you switching between characters?
I was switching between characters. I missed that. That is the problem then. Okay, so it's a me problem.
No, but that's what I'm saying. It's a learning curve because there is a lot to learn. It's not a minimalistic system. It's a pretty complex system. So when you pull up the menu, sure, you can use one of Cloud's moves, but maybe you really want to use one of Barrett's instead. So you can switch over to Barrett, have him do something, and then when you exit out of that menu, you're still Cloud, and you can just kind of keep going.
Yeah.
That's especially helpful if you are, like, let's say you're Cloud and you're really low on. If you pull up the menu and have Barrett use a healing item on you, Cloud then doesn't have to pause and wait to get his stuff out. Barrett does it instead, and you can keep going.
Okay. See, I didn't realize there's that either.
Yeah. So it's definitely something that will take some getting used to, and I can tell how once you get up to 3 party members, which I assume is still the limit for the maximum party size that you can have, I can tell how getting up to 3 is going to become much more challenging, because even just with 2 party members, both Cloud and Barrett died multiple times on my watch. I never got a game over, but I definitely had to use my revive to use potions like crazy. I don't know if you took as much damage as I did. Maybe I just suck at dodging and guarding.
What difficulty did you play on?
Normal?
I just played normal. Okay, I did too.
Yeah.
I didn't. Nobody died, but I did have to use like all of my potions.
Oh yeah, I used almost all of my potions. I think I had a few left at the end, but it's hard. It's not like a super easy game, which is really nice. I like that it's actually got some real challenge in there. It's really interesting.
But I like too, even how in just this demo, and I understand it's taken from this level, but I really appreciated how much the enemies scaled and how they handled the scale of the enemies. So you weren't just the first couple. You're fighting a couple soldiers. Easy peasy, lemon squeezy, you get through them, no big deal. Then they added the guard dog, and the guard dogs were actually a little more difficult to defeat.
They had a lot of help.
I was like,
what's up with these dogs?
Exactly. And then after you beat them, then it starts adding in like the sentries that are up high and those flying drones.
Oh, fuck those sentries, dude.
Yeah, but then you first get those first mini bosses, which were the sweepers.
Yeah, the big sweeper that kind of looks like a weird steampunk, like robot thingy. Yeah, like a tractor. It totally looked like a tractor. I actually really liked the sweeper. I thought it was a fun little mini boss.
It was a fun boss or battle.
And this kind of brings up a system that is really important or at least I can foresee being crucial to being successful, is in addition to having all of your commands, your limits, blah, 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 you have your own meter, but enemies also have a pressure meter. So you can see enemies' health bars at all times, and then right under them is another meter called pressure. And as you're attacking an enemy, they increasingly come under pressure. And if you pressure them enough, you stagger an enemy. And when you stagger an enemy, they're basically KO and they can't attack, and you do more damage. Staggering is incredibly helpful, A, to get a brief pause to recoup yourself. Maybe you need to heal, maybe you need to revive, but if you don't and you've successfully staggered somebody and you're already in a great position, you can go all out with all of your like special attacks that you've been saving up and do massive damage. The stagger system, I think, is really, really cool and a fun addition for sure.
I really enjoyed that, and I also really enjoyed, again, once you got to have Barrett on your team as well, comboing their moves together to increase the stagger bar or the pressure bar was really cool. And I did one time when you're fighting the final enemy, the boss of the demo, the Scorpion Sentinel or Spider Sentinel.
I don't know. I just call it the Scorpion. It's probably called the Sentinel.
Scorpion Sentinel.
I don't pay attention to that kind of thing. I just glaze over all of that, and I'm like, I don't know,
it's a big bad. I got to kill it. But I did one time like really pull off a really sweet combo with Barrett and Cloud, and it felt so good. Because like I want to say the stagger bar or the pressure bar was only like halfway filled on that thing, and then I think I used Barrett's overcharge, followed up with like his like really precise shot, focus fire, I think is what it was called.
Yeah.
And then once I initiated the focus fire, I switched back over to Cloud and had him do his thrust, his like powerful thrust move. And it just like hit all at the right times, and it caused the thing to stagger. And then I gave me like Barrett's limit attack and all this. It was so good. I just dealt so much damage.
Feeling? Gosh, no matter, it's so great to see that Limit Break was the most fun part of Final Fantasy VII.
It was so
aside from
cool.
The summon. I loved being able to summon creatures, but Limit Break is like iconic, and I love that it's still in the game. I love how they've done it, and of course it looks and feels amazing when you do it. So it's just like, I love Limit Break so much. It's so fun.
But what's really cool about it is that it does, like we said, incorporate the real-time mix with the well, I guess it's not turn-based necessarily, but what would you just, I mean, I guess it's just real-time combat, and then it just slows it down when you are in your menu and everything. But I still just love, as much as all that is, I love how great that combat mechanic is. I love how smooth everything is. Like the movements of the characters. Granted, yes, I had a little clunkiness getting through the menus. That's no big deal. The more I play it, the better I'll get at that.
But it's not like that was lag.
No, but like playing it on this, granted, I'm playing on a base PS4 that I've had since the PS4 came out, and this is now nearing the end of its life cycle, and it handled it like a champ. So it was super smooth. The animations were crisp. The graphics themselves super crisp, like we already talked about. Loved it. It loved the look of it. Loved the feel of it. And also, can we talk about how cool damage counters are? Like seeing the numbers of like how much damage you're doing to somebody popping up when you're fighting them. It's one of those things I hadn't really thought about before, but after playing Anthem and then this, I'm like, I love that. I love being able to see Assassin's Creed Odysseys and Origins were that way too. Like I know a lot of games have that, but I love it.
Always been a part of JRPGs is that anytime you hit an enemy, you see right above them how much damage you just did to them. That's a pretty standard thing. But because of how frequently you're attacking, especially with like Barrett, for example, who's got rapid fire, because of the frequency of attacks and the fact that it's not truly turn-based anymore, it does look pretty cool, and it makes you feel like...
Yeah, even when Cloud is like using his sword to block and everything, and you just see all the damage numbers like bouncing off him and everything, especially like that. It was good. It was good.
I will say that I think I really need to practice blocking and dodging because no blocks, only cowards block. We die like women out here. We're not gonna block. So I'm not a big fan of blocking, but I think I probably have to get good at blocking because otherwise I'm going to die a lot.
I was terrible at dodging the Scorpion Sentinel's like electricity attack.
Oh, me too. I got hit by it
me
every
all the
time.
time. It was bad. It got me
Even
really
when I
bad.
tried to dodge out, I just didn't have the reaction time for it, and it got me every single time.
Same. I was just like, what is going on? Why can't I not get hit by this thing? But it was still. I mean, I will say, overall, having never played a Final Fantasy game before, and I understand that this is a different introduction than what most had to the series, I left it being like, yeah, I'd play this game, which I honestly I didn't really think I had any interest in it before. But after I did this, I was like, yeah, no, I'll play this.
I feel like it's such a great thing that they chose to remake this particular game because, yes, it has a ton of nostalgia pull for the old players, but also it's a standalone game. You know, it's not like Final Fantasy VII is connected to any of the other ones, so anyone that's never played a Final Fantasy can pick up the Final Fantasy VII Remake and still get a really good experience without having any context around the series as a whole.
Yep.
They're all meant to be, with the exception of 10 and its many offshoots, they're all meant to be single experiences. So I do also want to share a little bit of the feedback that we've gotten from Destroya, friend of the show.
I was going to say we should talk about his stuff.
Yes, for sure. Now this is not again going to go into any spoilers. We're just going to get some thoughts out here, both good and bad, because unlike us, he's actually finished all of Final Fantasy VII Remake this episode. Whatever.
I don't know if you can necessarily. I know they're calling.
We'll have that
episodes.
conversation at the end. Let's save that because I'm annoyed about it too. So, anyways, he says, I can't believe Final Fantasy VII Remake is a real video game. It might just be the Midgar portion, but it is everything I ever wanted. It's overwhelming. And then he goes on to detail the skyboxes are incredible. The NPCs have so much dialogue. That was something that I noticed that I really liked. The main characters are perfectly recreated in both design and performance. The combat is fluid and strategic. The materia system, which the demo unfortunately does not include, so we'll have to get to that later. Okay. The materia system provides the player with countless options. The music, which we do need to talk about at the end as well. The music performs dynamically, with its intensity increasing or decreasing depending on whether or not you're in combat, and on and on. I love it so much, and I don't care how many installments or how many years it takes to remake the entire game because it's worth it if the quality remains this high. I agree with all of that, but then that was kind of earlier in the weekend. I think at that point he said he was about maybe 30 hours in or something like that. And then he did come to the end of the game, which again, no spoilers. This is not going to include spoilers, but he did mention that. And this is something I wasn't expecting. So I had no idea that this was in the new game. Apparently, Square Enix did choose to change and add in some new story elements that were not in the original.
Okay.
At first, Destroy just kind of seemed a little suspicious about it. Like, okay, this is kind of weird, but whatever, I'll just roll with it. But then it sounds like at the end of this first installment of the series that those story beats take a pretty extreme turn, and he personally hates it based on what he's told me, which was full of spoilers because I was like, dude, have at me. I've played the game. I don't care what happens. Tell me all about it. I can see where he's coming from. So if you are expecting a cut and dry remake frame for frame, that's not exactly what it is. It does have some new elements in there as well, elements that you may or may not like. But that being said, for being a single game that is one in a series of parts that are going to make up this game, he said he put in about 40 hours. So a 30 to 40 hour game experience for part one of what, 3 to 4 parts?
I think 4 is what they said. I
yeah,
think it's going to be 4.
That's probably worth the money. And up until that last 5 hours, he was totally on board.
Yeah.
Even though, much like every game, it's going to have probably some cons, but more pros than cons. So I think the general takeaway from him having finished it is that it's still an amazing game, but good God, I wonder where they're going with this in terms of the story beats being a little bit different.
Interesting. That's interesting. I knew from the beginning when they first announced this, that they were doing this, that they said it was going to be different. They were going to throw in some things that were going to be odd, but that's interesting that they would take such a big detraction.
Why don't we take a moment to revive the age-old philosophical debate. What's the difference between a remake and a reimagining? Let's talk about. I'm just kidding. Let's not.
Goodness, that's a big conversation for it.
It's such a circular conversation. It never goes anywhere.
But I mean, I definitely wouldn't necessarily. I know there was a lot of worry from fans of Final Fantasy VII before we knew a whole lot about this. Like, how long is this actually going to be? Like, are we going to get this? We're going to wait, because how long ago was it that they actually even announced they were doing this? I know I was still at my old job, and that was like
5 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, it was at least 5 years ago. It was a
long time ago. And I know since then, and then they said it was going to be episodic. And then people were like, well, how long are these episodes going to be? Because how annoying would that have been to have waited 5 years, got like a 10-hour story. And then you're like,
it would have been terrible.
Well, it's another two years until you get part 2. But I think with as much as 40 hours is a substantial game. Like, that's just a game.
I feel like calling them episodes is so misleading.
Yeah, I really think it is.
That's just not an appropriate word for it.
I like installments, honestly.
I like the word installments too.
Yeah, like you were saying. That sounded really good.
Parts, installments, because episode, it's the difference between a show and a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Episode implies one short sit down. Installment, or like a single movie, implies one long sit down. It's like, this is not an episode of anything. 30
hours is not
a full
an episode.
game. What is this?
Yeah.
So I think that it's stupid to call them episodes. I think that that's bad marketing. They should go with something else.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think that provides
not that short. I'm more on board than I was before.
Yeah, I think that honestly kind of hurt, unless you're like a fan of episodic games, which
no one is.
And
no one likes
especially
them.
Fans of Final Fantasy, for how long those games usually are. If you gave them a 5 to 10 hour Final Fantasy Part 1 and been like, cool, we'll see you in 2 years, people can be like, what? No. you could finish that literally in a day. Like, I mean, I know people will probably finish this in a weekend or something like that, but I mean, Destroya finished it really quick. But
he finished it quick, but I think he got it on a release day. So I think it took him at least a week and then some.
Okay. So, I mean, that's faster than I would have finished it. Faster than I would have finished any game. But still, I think, yeah, to some extent, I feel like calling it episodes created more worry than what was necessary.
Not just confusion. Sure, worry, but also just confusion, because now that you see how it's been implemented, it just feels so mismatched. It doesn't feel accurate at all.
No, it doesn't. But I mean, like I said, I super enjoyed it. I kind of went into it and I was kind of like, all right, I'm going to play this because I know we're going to talk about it. Originally, when we were even planning on doing this episode, I was going to bring another topic entirely to the table and everything.
Seriously, we're probably not going to have that much to say about it.
Literally, Final Fantasy has never really intrigued me before. And so I started the demo. I was like, all right, let's see what's going on. But then after the combat started and I got through the first few fights, I was like, I'm in this. Let's go. Let's see what happens. So I am
fully planning to. I am definitely planning to pick up this game for myself. It's not even necessarily that I'm broke right now. It's more that I'm broke on time.
Yes, that's my problem.
Shockingly enough, I have so many other games that I'm currently playing, and it's like, I can't start yet another 30 to 40 hour undertaking right now. I need time.
Same.
I need some time to play my other games.
Stop
showering me with so many opportunities, video game industry.
I know, right? Like, quit giving us so many great things that we're dying to play. But no, I'm the same way. Like, I've got Doom Eternal, still Ori. Of course, stupidly, like I said, restarted Dragon Age Inquisition, but that's just what I was feeling that day, So
sometimes it's just right.
Yeah.
Sometimes the feeling is just there.
Yeah. Oh yeah, and Control. So I've got 4 I've gone through right now.
Oh my god, I forgot about Control.
Yeah, we got to finish Control.
Control. Dang it, we have so many games.
I know, there really are. I mean, this call's weird to call it like the good thing, but I mean, like I now have at least more time and I'm not feeling the pressure to get to finish all these things before Last of Us Part 2 comes out. So at least I have a little bit more runway. So as sad as I am to see it being delayed again, but still, it's great. We'll get to all these great games. We'll get all the time in the world to play through them all. And then we're going to get lost in these worlds. So it's a good old time any way you look at it.
Yeah. And then I guess kind of to close us out and like lead into it, the last thing that I want to talk about from the remake is that, and there is a certain amount of the soundtrack up on YouTube that you can listen to now. The remake's soundtrack is beautifully done. It is just stunning.
I want to listen to
You
more of it
know,
because I've loved what I've heard so far.
dude, take the audio from freaking PlayStation 1 days. That was like 1999, 2000, to what's available and accessible and possible now, and just remake those classic tunes in such a refined and elegant way. It's a stunning soundtrack. I will probably listen to it for hours on end. The prelude itself is just like gut-wrenchingly beautiful, but the track that we are going to feature is, of course, the classic battle theme, Let the Battle Begin.
For our soundtrack spotlight, which also announcement leads into our next series. I know we just wrapped up on top 10 video game soundtracks of all time, but now we're breaking into another one, top 10 Final Fantasy VII Remake tracks of all time. Just kidding, we're not doing that. We're not jumping into another soundtrack series yet.
We could, if we had actually played enough, we could easily do top Final Fantasy games. We could even have 10 of them if we played all of them. Jesus, no.
I don't have that time.
I don't either.
We'll circle back around to this topic when we're 90 and we've like had our whole lives to play.
We'll have our whole lives. It'll take us that long.
It would take us that long because they'll keep adding more. We'll get the remaining installments of this game. There'll be Final Fantasy 25, 30 by that point. You know, it's
yeah, probably.
You know, it is what it is. But so what was that song one more time for our soundtrack spotlight?
So we are going to be featuring Let the Battle Begin, Ex-Soldier.
Nice. So that is our soundtrack spotlight for this week. And with that, that does conclude this episode of Team Chat Podcast, where we hope that if you have played the Final Fantasy VII Remake or the demo, please let us know. Join us on our Discord, comment below, send us an email, teamchatpodcast@gmail.com. We'd love to hear from you and hear your thoughts on this game. But like I said, we're going to listen now to our soundtrack spotlight as we exit the episode. We will see you all next week. I'm one of your hosts, Jerry Wilson, joined by Rachel Mogan.
Peace out.
See you all next time.